Okay, I think there's just a bit of a lag, and then okay, Jay's now co-host, so Jay's very familiar with both the Celsius community and Voyager community. So the way we've typically done this, just so you know, is literally people just request and we just tick to let anyone on. We're not curating or anything. So I've made Jay co-host and Azad should be co-host. And full disclosure, Azad works for Bank to the Future. He's in the marketing team. Azad, you need to approve that.
Okay, cool.
And Jay, we've got no affiliation other than just meeting and hanging out on Spaces, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Okay, great. Hi, Jay.
In fact, let me make a statement. No affiliation for whatsoever.
Okay, great.
Hi, Jay. Hi, Simon. I'm familiar with Jay. Simon, I'm not familiar with you, but I am part of the VGX Heroes community, and I see some of my fellow heroes here in attendance. But I wanted to ask before you get started, I watched that 15-minute video that our main heroes account is also on here, that they posted in our Discord. And I don't know if this is just me or if this happened with everyone else, but around the 11-minute mark, the sound completely cuts off for me. So are you aware of that, or did anyone else have a problem with that?
Yeah, I do. Just while we're waiting, yeah, I do these regular updates just before going to the gym in the morning. It holds me accountable to working out. And the microphone ran out of battery, so I was just rambling for ages. The rest of what I said was just ramble, so there wasn't really much more. Hopefully, and I just didn't have time to re-record, so I just released it anyway.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't me having problems. And thanks for
No,
the
it wasn't
video.
me.
It is informative for certain people out there who aren't familiar with business or investment really in general, or how the legal system works. So so thanks for that that video. And even if it's just rambling, I wish I was able to hear the rest, like the last 4 minutes or so.
Okay, pleasure. Thanks for coming up. Okay, all right. So Azad, you're there. You're co-host. You can let people in as well. I'm aware of. I've not knowingly blocked anyone, and I'm aware that it's a very sensitive thing when we're given these spaces. And when you make someone a co-host, I believe if they've blocked someone, then there's issues with people joining. And it's a little bit difficult to control that. But from my perspective, I don't block people. If someone's annoying me, I just ignore it. And I try to respond where I can. But if someone, gets overly aggressive or death threats or things like that, then I might block him. But my block list just consists of shit tons of robots. So in general, if someone doesn't like me or they're making like lots and lots of confrontations, I treat that as useful information and useful feedback. And so I try not to block unless it's becoming really, really unproductive. Now, I'm aware that other people have different policies, and when people start spamming them like crazy, it's kind of a time management tool. So each to their own. But I just wanted to let you know that that's kind of my way of doing things. And so I record these as well, just in case, like for some kind of reason, a co-host has blocked someone or something like that, which is a bit hard to control. Okay. All right, awesome. So we can. What we'll try to do.
Simon, before we get started, I don't know if you're looking at your screen, but
Gina, we're not gonna do that, babe. I'm sorry, babe. Simon, this is your room. You lead the room how you want to lead the room. Everybody is gonna be, in some kind of order, and we're gonna make it pop, and we're gonna get a lot of value out of it.
Okay.
Just 1 minute.
Jay,
Okay.
I'm just trying to tell him that someone from the UCC is in the room, and you're preventing me from doing that. So What my
So
understanding is
I'm
that
sorry. I'm
people,
sorry, Gina. I'm sorry.
yeah, you know me better than that. I don't interrupt people for no reason. So,
Okay.
and he just left the room. So we had Jason Raznick in here, who is the chair of the UCC committee.
Okay, great. Okay, well, good. It looks like
But he
we've got a bunch of people who's important to be here, whether they're here or not. They'll watch the recording, and hopefully, we've gathered enough people that care enough about this to get this where it needs to go. Okay, so the reason I wanted to do this is because I was just in. I like Jay. You know, Jay does these little hangouts with the Voyager community and the Cell community. You know, both are in different but similar situations, and every now and then I like to pop in and just kind of understand what's going on. So, full disclosures. I'm a shareholder in Celsius, own equity in the company. I'm the co-founder of a company that is a shareholder in over 100 different companies. And so there's all sorts of conflicts in many things that I do. But whenever I talk about a company, um, if I forget, then that's one thing. But I try to always let you know whether I own anything or whether I'm a shareholder. I'm also one of the top creditors in Celsius. As an individual, I use Celsius as a mechanism for locking up some Bitcoin so that I can pull out some dollars and then putting enough Bitcoin in earn so that it pays the interest on those dollars. It's a small percentage of my total net worth, so it's not been devastating for me, but it's a big chunk of change because I respect Bitcoin and I want to get those Bitcoins back. Um, at the same time, there's a lot of shareholders in Celsius that came through our platform. And we had a partnership with Celsius where we were building a securities law compliant version of the Earn product for a couple of years that we were working on. So those are, in terms of Voyager, I don't own any shares in Voyager. I don't have an account with Voyager, and I'm not a creditor in Voyager. So I've got no skin in the game when it comes to Voyager. But I do have experience of how to turn a disaster into a successful recovery because we did it in 2016 when Bitfinex was hacked for 119,000 Bitcoins. And the situation with Voyager is different but similar. And so, what I wanted to share with everybody is my thoughts on what's happening with Voyager. And I do have to say, I can only comment on public information because I've got agreements where I'm not able to discuss non-public information in both the cases of the Chapter 11 at the moment. So those are most of my disclosures. And I am a shareholder in Bitfinex. And Bitfinex also has the same owners as Tether. And Tether was one of the important potential clawbacks in the Celsius case. So those are what I think are the relevant disclosures. But let's jump straight into what I think the Voyager community should be doing. So the first thing is 50 million in an auction has got both a good thing to it and a bad thing to it. The good thing to it is that Voyager is following a process, and the management made it very clear from day one that they're putting this through an effective process. From what I can see, and I'm way less familiar with Voyager than I am with Celsius, just because of the intimacy of my current position. The cash burn at both is huge, and the speediness becomes very important because if any of those run out of cash, then you're in a position where you're kind of what's happening at Celsius right now, where you're being asked to reinvest in the company. So at the moment, Celsius is asking us, they got approval to sell Bitcoin to invest in their mining operation. And then they're seeking approval to sell stable coins so that we can invest in whatever their next plan is as well. It's a forced investment, so I really don't like it. And it's an alternative to DIP funding. DIP funding is where they would seek an external investor, but on the same side, it makes sense because if they seek an external investor, they pay interest on it, and they take precedent in terms of being a secured creditor rather than an unsecured creditor. What that means is that all the customers and clients would dilute their claim to the secured creditor, and therefore it's a forced investment again, plus you're being diluted the interest. So it makes sense that you would use the assets of the estate. However, it's not very nice when you're being asked to invest in something when you really don't have any choice on whether you want to invest in that or not. Okay, so that's kind of like the cash burn issue. So speed is always of the essence. Now, Voyager has been going through, from what I can see, a non-stalling process. Immediately when they entered into Chapter 11, they went out and said, we would like to put together a reorg. And in our reorg, we have tokens, we have equity, and have your balances, and we'd like to give you what we could in order to put together a reorganization. Now, rewind back to 2016. Bitfinex had to go bankrupt because it didn't have enough Bitcoin to meet the obligations to all of its customers. Immediately, they went out and said, we've got an issue here. So they disclosed it straight away, suspended withdrawals, and within a couple of weeks, we worked on a plan together, and they announced what that plan was. And the first part of it was to state we are $72 million, which was the dollar value of Bitcoin in the whole. We either file for bankruptcy or we come up with a recovery plan. And because they were in the British Virgin Islands rather than going into the US courts, they were able to maneuver in a way that they may not have been able to maneuver as a US company. So that's kind of one of the differences. But they put together a plan, and the plan allowed them to essentially get all creditors made a very, very good investment. It returned many times over. I'll go a little bit deeper into it. And it's because they successfully did a reorg. And so when I saw what happened in the Voyager, it started going through the auction, and then various parties come along and they auction and say, right, we'll buy everything up, or all the assets. And it was, kind of leaked. I can't confirm whether it's true or not from public versus non-public information, but public information stated that $50 million is likely the winning bid, and there's two parties that might get that winning bid. One of them was Binance, and full disclosure, Binance and CZ was somebody that I spoke to very early on in this process. And then he said that he's involved in these processes. I know him from the original meeting in Chengdu when he came up with the idea of the BNB token and launched it within 2 weeks, based upon that conference. So that's Binance is there, and then there's FTX. Now FTX is also a creditor. So FTX is in a similar position where they've got skin in the game as a shareholder and somebody that took out a loan. And so they very aggressively and actively engaged in the process and started putting together strategies similar to what I call, and has been called, the 1907 Jpmorgan strategy, which is leverage without much risk. And leverage without much risk means that you say, we'll give confidence back into the market, which is what Jpmorgan did when there was a bunch of bank runs, by allowing people, by making lines of credit available while we negotiate a deal to buy up the banks for pennies on the dollar. And that was a very successful strategy in 1907 in order to make Jpmorgan the powerhouse that it was. And I believe the analogy is very, very fitting for kind of what's happening with Voyager and FTX at the moment. So FTX is flexing a line of credit so that it can then enter into a process to acquire the company. Now, BlockFi, because they didn't reach into the bankruptcy situation, they had no choice, and they ended up a $4 billion company being sold for approximately 25 million without the regulatory securities approvals that are needed to continue the service. and some terms and conditions that state if you get the licenses that are needed, then we might buy it up for 250 million if you meet all the targets. My guess is that the targets are very hard to achieve, given all of the SEC situation at the moment and their appetite with all the announcements that they've been making recently. And so that's led to being able to purchase these companies cheap. Now, here's the key difference with Bitfinex. With Bitfinex, they took the opinion that our customers and our creditors are our future. And if we don't give a good deal to our customers and creditors, then they're not gonna reuse us again. We're not gonna make trading fees, and we got no shot at recovering. So when we were setting the specification for how to reorganize this company, it was with creditors in mind that if they're not made whole in a very good way, then there's no future for the business. And so that was really why we structured it in that way. And what they did is it's not fully what you could do now. There are ways of doing it, but they launched a token that represented a debt. And if you didn't want that debt, so the hole was filled with a token, and whether people believed it had value or not was based upon their belief around whether Bitfinex could actually recover. And many people thought, I'm out of this, it's a scam, I don't want anything to do with it. And so they sold it for approximately 30 cents on the dollar. Others believed in the future of Bitfinex, and so they purchased that token for 30 cents on the dollar. And as they reopened, they started to make, they started to win back trust. Customers started to continue using them. And the price slowly went up and eventually went to $1. And it actually started trading at a premium because people were willing to get in. Even though it was only worth $1, they were paying slightly more than $1 at some point. The reason for that is because the token was being repaid and people saw it as an opportunity to purchase the debt. And it's also because, and sorry if this is a bit complicated, they were able to convert it into equity in the company at a fixed price of $1. So 40% of the company was offered up to creditors and to shareholders that were willing to take that risk. And at 40%, about of the 72 million, about 55 million of it got subscribed to through Bank to the Future, which is the securities platform we built when we did this custom integration between Bank to the Future and Bitfinex. So some people were buying equity at 30 cents. Now on Bank to the Future, we have a secondary market and it traded at a peak of $16. So there was a huge return that was made to those that were willing to take the risk, and those that weren't, they had the ability to dump out. And then Bitfinex took all of their profits throughout the 2017 bull market, leading up to the 2018 crash, and paid it out as hundreds of millions of dividends. So it was one of the most best investments that outperformed Bitcoin at the time. And really, the reason is because they were able to use equity as an instrument. Now, if you think about what's happening with Voyager right now, is there's all this valuable technology, and the bid process is people that want to purchase and gain benefit from all of that in a free market, which is fair. Anyone can come along and bid if they've got the money, if they want to be a participant. So I'm all for free market. But the opportunity exists for those companies to put in better bids. And if they want that relationship with their customers, then I believe they should, rather than giving all of that value to the company that's buying them, they should be issuing equity, just like they did with Bitfinex. And so we've in this bid process right now, the company wants to do a reorg, as they said from the beginning. Now, I don't know too much about whether the company's brand and the board and whether that needs a new management or anything like that in order to win back trust. But this is the exact type of behavior that there's nothing wrong with it. It is free market. However, creditors can do so much better if the companies are put in a position where they get to compete with their own reorg. And so what I would suggest here is that the community in the UCC has gone through this bidding process at the moment, the beneficiary of all of Voyager's misery is going to be FTX shareholders at the expense of the creditors. And so creditors are going to be taking a haircut, and they're going to get a portion of that. So the whole is manageable with Voyager compared to Celsius, where it's pretty much a very difficult hole to fill. So it requires a slightly different approach. But FTX, as part of the terms in public information, again, I can't talk about non-public information, is that they're taking out, they're unwinding a $200 million loan based upon having collateral of their own token and some other collateral. So that takes a 600 million hole into a 400 million hole. It is my belief that anybody that wants a future relationship with these customers who are essentially giving the value to that company right now should be pushing the UCC in order to fight for a better opportunity for creditors. And they should get the equity. Now, here's the way I think that you and the UCC and the various parties should be playing the game from here. The bid has happened, and so therefore that process is in motion. There was meant to be two parties bidding against each other, but politics has got in the way. At the moment, Binance is being, from the public information, discriminated against because of the nationality of the founder, where it's being, political racism is being used, where they're essentially saying this is a threat to national security because of his Chinese background. And that is being used as a political tool in order to discriminate against who might be able to give better offers. Now, putting that all aside, that's all conjecture. That's my belief, but that's what's happening. There is politics. Politics is real. China and America are involved in, the next battle to be who's going to be the next global superpower economy of the world. You can't change that, but Binance has got itself caught in the middle of that. And so FTX has been given a slight favor here, and they also have the ability to unwind. FTX, from public information on the last funding round, was valued at approximately $30 billion. And it was also shown that they were raising funding in order to complete these transactions. What that means is that the shareholders that they are raising funding from are going to get the full benefit at the expense of creditors. Now, it is a free market solution, as I said, but I want all the creditors to at least have the information that if FTX wants to do that, they should offer shares in their company to the creditors. It's not if it was a much more competitive market, then I believe that the creditors, if FTX are going to benefit from all this technology, you as victims that have been, put in this situation should be getting shares in FTX itself. If FTX want to facilitate that process, we can do it. They might be able to do it. We did it with Bitfinex. We can do that again. Now, what I think is going to happen right now is that there's going to be a competing reorganization because the bid is shit. $50 million doesn't do anything for you as creditors. $50 million pays the investment bankers' fees, Kirkland & Ellis's fees, the UCC's fees, all the lawyers, all the advisors, all the accountants, all the auditors. So you're not going to see anything from that from the end of this process. So as a creditor, the UCC, you are paying them. They are being paid for by you because you are receiving less money as a result. You want a return on investment on that. And your return on investment should be that they put FTX and a reorg in a competitive process against each other. And I think the currency should be equity in the company. I believe that you should all be trying to become equity shareholders in either a reorganized company with the existing team, as what I can see Voyager was originally intending to do, using equity tokens and various other things. Or if FTX want to continue down this path, I believe they should be offering you equity in their company. Now, a $30 billion company means that there's not that much upside, But when they liquidate, when they go through an IPO in the future or whatever their exit strategy may be, the more conservative investors are still investing into that $30 billion valuation. You might get, a $100 billion company. FTX has, accumulated and acquired a lot of value recently, and they're setting to monopolize a lot of the industry in the acquisitions that they're making. Just talking about public information, as I said, I'm a shareholder in over 100 companies, so there's non-public information that I can't discuss. So the UCC should be lobbied in order to get you an ROI. And that return on investment should come from making that bid better. And if I were a creditor in this situation, which I'm not, then the company Voyager should come back and make an offer whereby they fill that hole in order to make you whole, but through equity. Now, equity is not a guarantee. And, it worked for Bitfinex. It may not work for Voyager. There's risk involved in that. But the Chapter 11 process allows you to issue equity. And Voyager was already set up as a public company as well. So that process can be facilitated. But here's the key thing. You as creditors deserve the upside, not the bidder that deserves the upside. For FTX to come along right now, and again, it's not a judgment on FTX, it's just a way that they do business, is the 50 million is just going to go on the fees. You're going to get nothing from it. And you're just paying everybody's fees. The company should either be offering equity to fill the hole, and if FTX want to continue in that process and compete with the company, then they should also be offering equity. My guess is that, look, if you look at the valuations you're experiencing right now, FTX is already a $30 billion company. They don't have the reputational damage. So the upside is a lot smaller, but the risk is a lot lower. If you look at BlockFi, they were a $4 billion company. And if they don't secure the licenses to become securities law compliant, they were acquired for 25 million. If you look at Celsius, it's a $3 billion company. And the valuation that's being used in Voyager will be used as a comparable for the Celsius situation. What I want to prevent, and what I've always been trying to prevent, is the Chapter 7 scenario where everyone does shit. And then an auction process where it doesn't, you end up with somebody coming in and taking all of that value, but instead a process whereby equity is used as the mechanism, which requires avoiding Chapter 7, but also moving into a Chapter 11 reorg. Now, the difference with Voyager and Celsius, again, all public information, is that Voyager, most of their money was being made in trading. The loan business, from what I can see, got them in shit, and is where all the regulatory issues are, because to give you an insight into the regulatory challenges right now, there are two different types of things that are happening. Firstly, the regulators are stating and putting cease and desist orders into another company that I was a shareholder in early, which is Coinbase. They had to close their service because they did actually buy our broker dealer, but again, public information. But they haven't got it set up in order to offer it as a security right now. So they ceased on that process. BlockFi has got a fast track to try and apply to get the securities registrations. And Celsius doesn't have those, and because there's very challenging situations in Celsius right now, getting approval for those would require, in my opinion, a new org and a new management team that could be approved. Voyager, from what I can see, doesn't have the same issue because it doesn't need the lending service. It doesn't need the earn service. That can find a home in order to now, but there was most of the lenders were institutional, which is what made it have such a big hole, because it had massive exposure to Three Arrows Capital, as we all know. So what I encourage everyone to do, and if the UCC is listening, give every creditor their money's worth right now. That $50 million is just going to pay everybody's fees. There should be equity to fill the hole. We don't use Chapter 11 as a process of giving everyone a haircut. We use Chapter 11 as a process of allowing the creditors to be made whole and the potential of a whole lot more for all the anxiety and stress that they've been put through. I really don't suggest you give that value to a company that's just going to be in a predatory situation to accumulate it at pennies and the dollar. And that's the process that should be avoided at all cost. So, that's what I think you should be lobbying for. And whatever comes next from the company reorg, you should look at that as a strategic process to bid the company reorg versus the bidders and find out what the political challenges are in the Binance situation. And there's also the other one, which is the Wave Financial. But make sure you get the best deal possible and not just pay the professionals' fees. You've been through a lot of shit. You deserve more. And I think that upside should go to you. And that's how it should be structured. So I just wanted to say that. The other thing is there is also a token. Now, token is a controversial subject. There's a couple of things that are happening on the regulatory side right now. The first one is earn and lending is becoming securities and lending license product. You've got to have, on the lending side, you've got to have solvency. And on the securities side, you've got to have the different securities licenses. An interesting opportunity is that banks are now being, new regulations is coming through whereby banks, if they want to get into this crypto lending business, they have to meet Basel requirements. And I'm sorry if this is being a bit geeky, but I'll tell you the outcome. They have to meet Basel requirements whereby the assets in custody are being added as a liability on their balance sheet. What that means is that they have to have, in banking, you have to have deposits. So the more and more you custody, the more and more deposit you have to have. So as the price of Bitcoin would go up, as you're custodying Bitcoin, you'd end up needing to have greater and greater deposit requirements. And that's very prohibitive for banks at the moment. So the securities lending model is really the interesting path forward for that as a result of these changes that are happening right now, right as we speak. Another change that's happening is the SEC is giving indication that anyone that creates staking products, those products are securities. Whether that happens or not is another thing. It doesn't mean that they're on the blockchain. Really, it's going to drive people into this wedge between DeFi and CeFi. And if you've watched any of my videos that I've always been publishing over the years for over a decade now, I said this is going to drive people in two different directions. There's going to be centralized services that have to meet the regulatory requirements in order to meet the standards of traditional brokers. And this Chapter 11 process would have been very different if these companies were actually registered as brokers. And Voyager in the beginning tried to use that argument, but they obviously didn't have the actual registrations. They were just using it in legalese. Because it would have been treated very differently, and this would have been a lot faster process. So the way things are moving right now is that it's very hard to get these tokens out of Chapter 11 because of all the regulatory political issues around what tokens are, whether they're securities or whether they're not. But what's becoming very clear is that you need to drive a wedge between the centralized platform and the decentralized platform. From my understanding, the Voyager acquired technology, decentralized technology for self-custody. And early on, there was motions filed and various other things filed to utilize that decentralized technology for the token. That's another potential area of where value can come from this as well. And so that could be an area that FTX just ends up the beneficiary of that, or it should also be the beneficiary of those that have been shafted by this. So there's those potential areas where I think creditors should really be pushing to make sure that they receive the value from it. And the hard part is when you try to combine the centralized solution and the decentralized solution. That's where all the regulatory problems occur. And so if you can make that clear separation, there's value there. And if I were appointed on the UCC, then my job would be to try and make sure that that value goes to creditors and not to the company that's acquiring. So I will make sure that this recording makes its way to those that are going to be involved in any kind of reorg at Voyager, the UCC, and any decision makers that may be involved. And I think at the very least, everybody that's involved in this case should at least understand that there is value that is being transferred away from the victims. And this is certainly not the best result for creditors. And if you're being paid a shitload of money as a professional right now, do your job, because there's a lot more value to be given to creditors here. So I have a very bad habit of over speaking, and I probably could have said all that in about 10, 15 minutes. But I just wanted it all there so that there's enough detail for people to understand. And let's bring a few people up so that we can potentially answer some questions as well.
Let's bring on Anthony.
Hey Simon, how you doing, man?
Hey Anthony, how's it going?
Good. So I was just thinking, out loud over the last couple of days, as these crypto prices keep falling lower and lower, these holes get smaller and smaller. Like the Celsius hole, when they made the hole, right? Initially, Bitcoin was at $28,000 a coin. Now you're at, 19,000, and it probably is going to go lower with, the rates going up higher and higher. So I'd predict we're probably going to get like a $10,000 to $15,000 Bitcoin. In a situation where you have a lot of bidders, which are exchanges, right? Binance, FTX, it's very easy to manipulate crypto prices, as you know, and they could push prices lower and get orders filled at good levels. And, let's just say you could buy all of Celsius. Let's say the prices get down under $1 billion. Let's say to refill everyone's missing coin, it's 800 million. Well, you could probably value certain entities at 800 million alone and take over the whole thing. Couldn't that be a potential strategy for some people?
Yeah, so this is the kind of thinking that the community needs to be looking towards. So understand the position right now is that these companies are short crypto. Most, if you're not aware of the situation, people are like, yeah, let's wait for a recovery, and then everything. The recovery gets worse when you're short. So they have a short crypto position. So their positions are getting better the worse crypto is. So it's an interesting scenario that creates these interesting possibilities. But the most important thing is that if you end up with equity in the current position, then the value of these companies are going down, which makes them the potential upside in the next bull market. Either that goes to the company that's acquiring them, or it goes to the creditors. And so that's what I think, you should be pushing for, is making sure that equity and all that benefit goes to the creditors.
Yeah, Simon, couldn't someone realistically, though, isn't this a potential where someone could just say, hey, you're all repaid back all the coins that you're owed and we own this whole thing going forward? Is that a possibility?
So walk me through that again.
So let's just say someone comes in. Let's just say the prices get so low for, let's just say the Voyager, Celsius, whatever. Let's say ETH goes down $500. Let's say Bitcoin goes to $12,000 or whatever, and they're looking at the hole, which was initially a $2 billion hole. Let's just say now you're looking at an $800 million hole, and you're like, okay, can I come in as an investor, basically put up that money to refill, make all these creditors completely whole, and now I own the whole company moving forward?
Yeah, so you're competing with the valuation. So what happens with the Voyager case? Like BlockFi has now been valued at between 25 million to 250 million. Investors that are bidding are going to be looking at that. It's going to take a special kind of investor to come along and say, I'll fill that hole and completely overpay, which is why I don't, if we get someone like that, then great. It's normally someone that can print their own money, which is normally when people have their own tokens, which both Binance and FTX have. So
yeah, I was thinking it'd have to be an exchange. That was what I was going with. I think it'd have to be an exchange to do it. But it would be like, okay, well, for like the Celsius example, you could get all the customers. You got 1.7 million KYC people. You got 600,000 plus people with $100. You take over the whole network into your database. You take over the loan business. You take over the mining company. You take over GK. You could take it all over and put all these different assets to work for you if you're intelligent. But it has to take the right investor, like you said.
Yeah, or you give all the benefit of all those assets to the creditors.
100%.
That's
where
exactly where
it goes
everyone
either
should
way.
be thinking.
Yep, exactly. No, that's the one or two ways. I was just thinking that as the prices get more, as the prices get lower, I think it actually becomes more and more of a possibility. Initially, I wouldn't think anyone would come in and fill a hole, but if they get low enough, that's what I was saying. Could be the right party that sees an opportunity. Who knows?
Yeah, it depends how distressed we get. Cool. Thanks, Anthony.
I don't have too much to comment at the moment, but I just wanted to thank you, Simon, for, I know you went on for about 35 minutes, but that was a great deconstruction of, what's going on. So thank you for that.
Sure. Knowledge is power. And let's make sure that creditors get the benefit from this, not the companies.
Hi, hello, Simon. Thank you for your great analysis. I just want to bring the attention to a type of people that basically fell victim of, not victim, but basically as a collateral, the damage of what's happening are the startup. And I'm one of them, one of the digital asset startup that has licenses and was developing great products, etc. And all our runway basically was tied up into one of the lenders. I don't want to disclose who it is right now, but basically we find ourselves in a situation where basically no access to runway and great the destruction of value. But and today, I think there are many people in my situation. We kind of hang in there because we have built something and we are almost there. But today we find ourselves, and I think many of the guys like me find ourselves in challenge with capital adequacy because we have capital adequacy requirement. Most of our runway was in earned programs because that allowed us to stretch our runway, etc. So basically, to these people, okay, to these type of collateral damage, what would be your analysis moving forward? I mean, what can we do other than that? I mean, recapitalizing, no one is looking at us because it's done. We have licenses and we have assets that maybe these big guys didn't have, etc. So what's for us? Because
All right.
You get my situation.
I'd need to understand a bit more, but I get the overview. Somehow you've been caught into a liquidity crisis that's turning potentially into insolvency because you're running out of cash flow, because these assets are locked up, and so your business cannot secure outside capital. What I think, and again, just shooting, thinking aloud as you're telling me what the situation is, we need to make sure that you are getting the best assets possible for your business. And then eventually you might be able to do some kind of securitization against those assets. And so I know that's probably if you're in a real cash flow. But I think your job is to try and stay alive for as long as you can, because you might end up with a real valuable asset at the end of this. And so how you deal with your liquidity issue, making sure it doesn't turn into a solvency issue, it is a challenge. And I think securitization of the assets and finding investors that would be able to take the correct bets. I do believe that if we move swiftly along, we can have secondary markets for these types of claims. At the moment, those are happening at predatory prices. But once the numbers are understood, you might be able to do some financial engineering around securitized assets. But I just hope that you're not in a position where it makes your business insolvent. Hold on, I guess. Maybe you might even need to go into Chapter 11 yourself, depending on the severity of the situation. And there might be an asset that comes out of this that could take you out of Chapter 11. That's a very, very tricky situation to be in. I can't give legal, financial advice around that. But those are the types of things that I'd be thinking about. I'd be pushing hard to get the best asset possible, so that then you can figure out, how do I deal with the cash flow issue, securitization, financial innovation, in order to, and you might need Chapter 11 breathing space yourself. I'm not too sure, but you're going to need that advice.
Is your platform open for this guy to give us some type of exposure for recapitalization for our type of companies?
Bank to the Future is a platform for fintech and Bitcoin companies that want to
I am a
raise
Bitcoin
finance and
company.
securitize. Yeah, so
I am.
apply on banktothefuture.com, hit the raise finance button, and one of our team members will have a look at your situation.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, next speaker, Beth.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking your time. Simon, I know you are not directly involved with Voyager. Obviously, there are a lot of people here on this call that have lost a lot from both Voyager and or Celsius. I have a lot of great ideas, but I'm only one person. So, I want to wait until they're constructively written out, which I have started to do. And I will somehow either get them to you, Simon, or one of the UCC members. Again, just thank you for all that you're doing. And I was a consultant ambassador for Voyager for a limited amount of time. And, I am directly or indirectly responsible for bringing some of their influencers and celebrities. I work with athletes and celebrities and their charities. And I don't think any of them think any negatively of Voyager or their management leadership team. But $50 million is kind of like a joke to me and to a slap in the face to us.
Mm-hmm.
So I really appreciate you, Simon. And, I have been speaking to some of my ambassador of these people, and they've been giving me some ideas, whether they're in or not anymore. I'll reach out within the next 48 hours, but I just wanted to say thank you very much for all of your efforts.
Okay, pleasure. The game is understanding what is the most likely to get out of Void Chapter 7. There's regulatory considerations, there's financial and feasibility considerations, there's trust considerations, there's branding considerations, and then there's just simply how to structure something that benefits creditors, because at the end of the day, creditors are the customers that are going to come back. And if Bitfinex hadn't made their customers whole and a whole lot more, none of them would have come back. So that's really the game that needs to be played. There are a couple of ways of doing that. If the existing management is getting in the way of that or cooperating in being able to support that, then those decisions need to be made. And the UCC is the outlet that you are paying to represent you, and you should be getting your money's worth. And if we can coordinate these conversations to try and get attention and spotlight to the right things, then hopefully this is a movement that started, and we'll see where this goes from here.
Okay, next speaker is Liquid.
Hey, room. How you guys doing? So I follow the bankruptcy case. I basically read every filing from the court, so I'm pretty good on all that. If you guys have any questions, and the 50 million bid, nobody's sure if that's an overbid or that's an actual bid. The unsecured creditors committee actually put out a tweet after that was put out, and they said disregard any information you see because it's all NDA.
Okay. Great. So let's wait for the real information. I just wanted to get ahead of it based upon speculation on the public information. Thank you.
Thanks, Liquid. Next speaker is VGX.
I was wondering as well. I guess it might be difficult for anyone to really know this, but I'm curious if Voyager is able to continue staking the assets that they do have, and if so, if that might be beneficial to them, or at least the VGX, since that's their proprietary token. If they're still staking that, is that something that might help us?
Yeah, this is how you should be thinking. Those assets are yours and they're about to be given to the bidder. If they've got a lot of staking assets, then I believe that you, as creditors, should be structuring a reorg where you're the beneficiary to those products. And if the bidder wants to be beneficiary to those products, then they should be offering their equity as well, in order to make sure that you benefit that by the new bidder. So that's why I'm keen that all of you end up with equity in this process, rather than the shittest process, which is Chapter 7. And then the next shittest process is where things are auctioned off and the bidder gets the benefit and you don't.
Yeah, it does. It seems, a bit strange for them to opt for the Chapter 11, and then they are retaining employees, and they have all these licenses and other things that are of value, and I guess we don't really know at this point due to the NDA if those things are being considered or not.
Yeah, so if I were to speculate, I think, as I tried to say, strategically, you should try and get behind a company reorg, and then competing bids. And from what I can see, all processes that Voyager have been following is they signaled very early that they wanted to do a company reorg and use equity as a mechanism. Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to call somebody to the stage. We have Mr. Shingo Levine, calling him to the stage right now as a speaker.
Hey, Shingo.
He's connecting. Greetings, Shingo. Greetings. Good to see you. Shingo, if you guys met,
Yep.
let's go.
Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you now.
Hey, nice to talk to you guys, and nice to be here. Obviously, I'm going to be limited in what I can say, but I wanted to be able to answer the VGX Heroes question around the staking. Voyager did put a they did put a request with the court, and that court request was approved to stake coins, and they actually are staking coins. There were some astute members of the community who were tracing some of the coins moving around in Voyager's wallets, and I posted a tweet about what was happening there. And again, that's all on the blockchain public, and you can see that those coins were being staked. So Voyager actually is actively staking coins right now in the platform. And also, I wanted to address the other point that Simon was making around doing sort of a company reorganization, and I think it would be beneficial for the process to sort of include different points of views on the reorganization process. And early on, we filed this is again public information. We filed our plan and objection to for a company reorganization, and I think that the creditor committee should be looking at different options, and creditors should be thinking about that. So just wanted to say that.
Cool. Hey, Shingo, you're an ETH guy, right?
Yeah, I am.
What I haven't because I've just been so busy. I haven't even looked at what's happening with the proof of work chain. Has that maintained any value?
As far as I could tell, the proof of work chain has had very minimal value. I know the futures were sort of trading pretty somewhat highly, but then post merge, they sort of crashed. I think they're trading sort of single digits right now, so not really. It doesn't look like.
Okay. Is there any liquidity there, or you haven't really been following it?
I haven't even bothered to look at my Ethereum proof of work coins, and I'll probably look at them in a month or two, see if they hold any value whatsoever.
Okay. All right. Well, those are the estate's asset. That's all I wanted to say as well. If there's any value there, I haven't really been following it.
There's probably some value in that, but not significant, probably.
Okay. Thanks for coming up.
Yep.
Okay, next speaker is Nate. Okay, Nate is gone. Let's go with Gemfi. Gemfi, can you hear us?
Okay, let's move on.
Okay, let's go with Scrubbing.
We can hear
Perfect. So first of all, I do want to say, Simon, thank you so much. I'm more primarily a Celsius, creditor as of right now, but I definitely do have money too as well in Voyager. I just want to do a quick chime in myself and say I do agree with a lot of your points where I think push an equity or also trying to push a good recovery coin. is, in my opinion, way more smarter, especially on a somewhat lower evaluation of 50 million, because I could definitely see a way more bigger upside and more so long term in the crypto market. If you guys push equity, you guys maybe work with a more proper crypto company in the industry and help that out and try to have better management with that. Because I always agree with you. I think crypto problems kind of deserve crypto solutions. So just want to give a big thank you for all the hard work you do.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, next speaker is Felix.
Thank you, Simon. I have a couple questions, just in terms of the way this deal is coming out, in terms of the rumors, and obviously just rumors because they're uncorroborated. But as of the first presentation that Voyager presented to the court in July, they had over 110 million cash and own crypto assets on hand. Now, obviously, that's a little bit low. I think the update was something around 90 million. Then they sold Coinify, that brought back 2 million, and then saving them, I think that's 500,000 a month. And then obviously with the staking, so things are obviously improving in that aspect. So I'm not really understanding how is it even possible how bidders can bid lower than the cash at hand. Like, why on earth would Voyager accept that? So it's leading me to believe that there's something else going on, or that these rumors are just not true. Because why would Voyager or the UCC accept a bid lower than the cash on hand? So if you could speak on that, maybe give a little insight on why that.
Yeah, it's cash plus debt. So the debt is greater than the cash. So therefore, in theory, the company is insolvent, and so therefore they're valuing 50 million, plus the whole above that. So
Right, that's exactly what I wanted to clarify. Because a lot of folks are maybe believing that it's literally just $50 million for the what would be 600 plus million of crypto assets on the platform. Basically 1.3 minus 650 million. It's on there on the presentation. So there are crypto assets worth value that they did not lend out, that they were custodians of, and some that they weren't even staking. So it's not like the company's at zero and someone's buying them for $2 and then they're going to split those $2 with everyone else. So I think there's a lot of misinformation out there.
Be aware that they're probably going to give the haircut to you,
But of course,
and then they're going to keep the value as well. So that's why the job of the UCC should not be, and the job of the company and the investment bank should not be get a deal done that pays our fees. It should be fill the hole plus more. That's what I believe it should be. And those that want to engage in the bidding process should be using financial innovation in order to fill the hole, not get a bargain.
And to your point, you brought up a good point in that the value goes to the bidder. Technically, is there anything legally preventing the bidder? Let's say it's FTX, Binance. Let's say FTX buys Voyager for X amount, and they actually decide not to pass the value on to back to the creditors. They just completely buy out the company and say, you are now our customer, but you're not getting your assets back. Is that possible?
Yeah, absolutely, that's possible. And that's the normal process. If a company wants to come along, this is what Carl Icahn, the most famous investor for this, made his money doing. And this is what people kept accusing me of doing when they didn't understand that I want to use equity as a mechanism for making sure that the value goes to the creditors, and has a process that's likely to get out of a reorg rather than end in Chapter 7.
Now, with that said, the reason why I asked that is now, obviously, as part of the reorganization, Chapter 11, Voyager was required to actually submit their standalone plan. If the standalone plan is better than the bids, they can reject the bids and then just move along with their standalone plan until there's a better option, and maybe they can go through this process again at a future date.
Exactly. That's why the process has just begun, and everyone needs to wise up to what they need to do in order to get a better result, because I want you to have the value, not someone else.
So plainly speaking, just so everyone understands, the UCC must understand that the equity is actually really where the value going back to the creditor, not to the bidder. And if we don't have that, basically we are not getting our crypto assets back.
Correction, you probably get a haircut, but you're not filling the hole.
Right, yes, you're right. Yes, yes, exactly. Yes, you will get some little tiny amount of your crypto assets back, but you will not be actually be getting equitable value on your assets if unless you were to actually go with the standalone plan, which is basically we are in a hole minus the assets. This is what you have. So we know we have a hardline number. We know what that is now. If the bids aren't better for the creditors, there's really no incentive for it to be accepted.
Yeah, and either end up with Voyager equity or a strategy that gets you entitlement to that, and those assets being utilized for your good, or if FTX want to come along and play, then give you equity and allow you to benefit from them.
Thank you so much, Simon.
Okay, next speaker is Mr. Kitty.
Thank you. Thank you for calling me up, and thank you for allowing me to speak. And it is Mr. Kitty. I would like to say, first of all, Jay Phibbs and Azad, y'all have handled this space extremely well. I love the way y'all are calling people up and allowing each individual to speak. Marvelous job. I think some people should take some notes. Simon, here's my question. You stated before that some of your most prolific gains have come from distressed assets. Do you now see a potential in Voyager as such a situation? And is that why you're now speaking in a Voyager room?
So I can't talk about non-public information, but I would look like the biggest dick in the universe if I came along and said this and then bet against what I'm telling you. And if I did, I deserve all of the shit that I get in Twitter. My career would be over. I've invested 10 years in over 10 years, sorry. 2011, I joined the Bitcoin space. And I've been investing in growing companies, not distressed companies. Anyone that said that I've been buying distressed companies, if I was buying distressed companies, I'd own a big chunk of Bitfinex right now rather than issuing equity. We created financial innovation in order to allow people to benefit from the growth of this sector. And I've been investing my whole life in companies that have created the most amount of value and lots of unicorns. Now, when I say invest during bear markets, I'm talking about investing in Bitcoin and those types of things. So I'm not a distressed investor. I'm somebody that invests during bull markets, someone that invests during bear markets. And the platform that we built was a mechanism for distributing the returns from the growth of financial innovation, Bitcoin, and technology to the community that were actually able to invest in these opportunities. And that's why we revamped securities laws in multiple jurisdictions in order to allow that to happen.
Thank you for your response, and thank you for my time on stage. I will step down now.
Okay, for future references, we're not going to ask Simon. We got the question out the gate that hey, what are your intentions here? We're not going to have another question like that. Let's stick to the VGX token, the Voyager, rejuvenation, whatever case scenario. Let's keep it there, guys. All right, who's next up?
Yeah, but also
Tim?
my full intention here is I believe that everybody can use financial technology in order to make sure that you as creditors get the benefit from this.
Next speaker is Tim.
Hey, thanks, guys. Thanks for taking me up here. Just a real quick question back to the UCC. I'm not sure exactly how many creditors there are with Voyager and also with Celsius. And I don't remember exactly how many people are on the UCC, but how is there a way that, input, like from myself, whether it's Alex or whether it's you, Simon, or whether it's, is there actually going to be a way where we find out these unsecured creditors like myself, how many people would actually go along for the ride, if you will, for lack of a better term? Crypto long, I think I've asked this before on a few other forums that Simon was on or wanted to, just didn't get called up. It seems like there's a lot of focus on, obviously with the courts and everything, but looking back towards the less meat and potatoes, like, is there a way that there might not be that much money that needs to come up front because a lot of people would be willing to take the ride? Yes, I know the whole, but I just feel like there's some smaller things that aren't really being touched on. If anybody's picking up what I'm saying.
I think what you're saying is there a way of structuring all of the assets so that benefits go to the creditors? And I believe there is, yes. And it combines equity, and it combines utilizing the assets in very innovative ways. So, example, a Bank to the Future in 2014, we created a mining-backed security that paid daily dividends in Bitcoin and that paid out thousands of Bitcoin by having a profitable mining operation. We also did an Ether mining-backed security that's transitioned to proof of stake. When we originally pitched a plan, we were talking about how you fill the hole with a token that gives you access to the value that's treated as a security that could be convertible into equity. And by using these mechanisms, there's different ways of making sure that the creditors get the maximum amount of value. The key to it is being able to get out of Chapter 11 and do it in a regulatory compliant way, and then structure it not where it's so innovative that the court just don't understand it, but with sound experience and sound examples of, look, we've done this before, this can be done. Just a realistic plan. But I think maintaining equity value is really, really important, and utilizing all the assets for the benefit of creditors. And that's where my focus has been since I've been on these cases.
And you're basically saying that both of them or all of them cannot be done, or are you allowed to say, can they be done under current leadership? Do they have to restructure into different companies if the courts, is it the court's decision that's going to allow, say, Celsius to run as Celsius and Voyager to run as, or does it have to be a complete reorg, or can it be a combination of both? And I'll heed the rest of my time. Thank you, guys.
It's a regulator's question, and I believe that the regulators are not going to allow bad actors to operate these companies, and they're not going to set precedent that reverses all of the work they're doing of how they want these products to be going forward. So if anyone is in the way of that process, they need to step aside so that it can get out of in the most regulatory compliant way that allows the regulators to sign off on this. And that's a very key part. For example, if you have lending licenses and regulators want to take away those lending licenses because of the solvency, yeah, you could reorg your way out of it, but it's very complicated. If you need to offer securities like earn, those are key assets. If you need to, the custody solutions, there could be a DeFi solution, there could be a CeFi solution. But it's making sure that where this goes, the different key assets are put to work for the benefit of creditors. And so you need a company that has the most possibility to get regulators to agree.
Great, I appreciate that. And I just say one more quick thing. Back to going long. Although that a lot of creditors like myself are not going to be able to speak, obviously, in court, and the only way we can speak is in these forums. I just have a feeling, and I've mentioned this before, that there are a lot of people who are willing to wait. And I mentioned it on other forums as well, the same exact topic, that there are a lot of hardships out there. And I really wish that there was a way for the judge and everybody to realize that this doesn't all have to be done. Everybody wants it done in a quick time frame, but filling the hole and everything doesn't have to be. I feel like it doesn't have to be so quick and so heavy and so hot, because there are a lot of people who want to stay in it, whether or not it's earned or however that it works. It just seems like there's bits and pieces that need to be addressed, but there's also a lot of bits and pieces that can be addressed down the road. But I appreciate everything you said. I completely understand what you meant with everything you just said. Thanks again.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that's why constructing this, and that's what we did with Bitfinex. We constructed it with optionality. If you want out, get out. There's a market. If you want to take the long game, then hold the debt. If you want to take the high risk game, then take the equity. And you can have a combination of all if you choose, because the market forces, as long as you've got a business that can continue, and all of the regulatory permissions to make it happen in a speedy fashion, and an understandable fashion.
Okay, next speaker is Garen.
Hey guys, Simon, thank you a lot for all the information and the time that you have put in. I really, really appreciate it. Learned a lot from your spaces. I think you're very open. I think you're very, at least honest and patient with all the various options. My question really centers around, I read that news article. I'm not sure there's enough details to jump to conclusions on the $50 million offer, but can you clarify? So Voyager has already presented a plan to repay unsecured creditors with some mixture of the assets that they hold on the platform, some haircut, as well as equity, VGX token to make up the difference, which sounds a lot like what you all did with Bitfinex. Am I misunderstanding that the auction has to at least start at that level and progress from there in the stalking horse fashion? Am I missing something there?
Yeah, so Voyager wanted to do a financial innovation solution. We spoke early, and we let them know about those options. And I think they had to go through the auction process, set the valuations, and now I think the process is just beginning. And I think everybody should be pushing for that. And we have the capabilities and the ability to support them on that, or they could do it through other companies that have that. So I just wanted to let you know that this 50 million is the starting point. It shouldn't be seen as the end destination. And yesterday, I was unfortunately I was out all day yesterday, and I retweeted the headline because I thought it said 500 million, and I was like, okay, it's getting bid to fill the hole. Awesome. But it was 50 million. I was like, oh, that is so shit. That just covers the fees. That's not a good outcome. And so that's why I just did this space. I said everyone can do better.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I guess I was under the impression that the auction had to at least take Voyager's offer and go from that point in a stalking horse fashion, and I guess I've misunderstood that.
Okay. By the way, don't take this as legal advice. Like literally, I've got counsel and team working on those processes. I'm just kind of doing the public communications while we got a team working on all that stuff. So yeah, I don't want you to think that that's legal advice or anything, because I'm getting just as much advice from my counsel on these things.
Okay, next speaker up is Crypto Fool.
Hey, Simon, thanks so much for doing this. We appreciate you sharing your knowledge and opinion. And I think it's really important that we stress, the importance, I guess, not only of being made whole, but gaining equity as well. And I guess, there's been several questions on that front, so I won't repeat those. But here's my, I guess, my main question. So the current speculation, and it's just that speculation, is that if we're bought out, VGX would be valued at zero. On top of that, we would not be made whole. We'd be extended the haircut, and then not gaining the additional equity as a possibility. But what are the legal consequences of valuing out a token at zero as if it were equity in the company, thus essentially treating it like a security after being sold as an unregistered security? Is that even possible?
Yeah, the token is an issue. If you want the token to be used as a security, then it can no longer trade on crypto exchanges. It can only trade on security token exchanges. And if you want US to be involved in that, then it's going to have to go through a Reg A plus process, or there's going to be have to be, it's likely it's a very, very long process. and it's not likely to get out of chapter 11 if you start focusing on that and the token. What you do after, and if that remains an asset, then you can utilize that. And the way that everything's going is that tokens are only likely to survive under DeFi solutions, and they're highly unlikely to survive in a combination with centralized solutions, because that doesn't meet the Howey test, and the SEC is going gun-ho on that right now, and they're certainly not going to allow the most exposed cases to send an opposite signal to the signal they want to send to the market right now.
Agreed. So to cancel VGX like common shares would essentially treat VGX like an unregistered security, which would create all sorts of issues.
Yeah,
Would your preference be to?
It would be silly anyway, because you could just do all that with the database. Creditors can't share their claims with people that aren't entitled to those claims, and there's people that can buy those tokens on exchanges right now. So you'd want to start with you'd have to start with a new ledger, as it were, rather than diluting victims' claims with people that can just speculate on a token and it gets diluted because of that. That was something that was being proposed in the Celsius community, and then after a bit of investigation, I think the community reached consensus on how that doesn't make sense and wouldn't meet the requirements of Chapter 11 to maximize the result for creditors and treat everyone with equity.
So
Sorry, but just to not make confusing, equity as in equality, as not opposed to equity, the financial product.
Understood. So what would your advice, or I guess as we lobby to the UCC to how to gain maximum value for all creditors, but VGX holders in particular?
So let the company reorg. Let them use equity as a mechanism. We will make a commitment to support them with any of the tools that they need in order to do that. Get the messages out to them, and then if FTX wants to play, then FTX should offer equity in their company if they want to play. Make sure you get the upside.
Great, thank you.
Okay, next speaker is Liquid.
Hey guys, so I was curious, if you wanted, I would go over the whole stalking horse and qualified bidders for the room if everybody wanted to learn about that.
Yeah, go for it. That'd be useful, I think. Are you an expert on the subject, yeah?
Not an expert, but I just follow the core hearings really good. Not
Okay,
good, but a lot.
Let us know. So tell everyone with the basics. What is it and why does it matter?
So Voyager's current plan that they have, their stalking horse plan, is it's going to be whatever crypto's left. So, just estimating, say, 65%. The VGX tokens that they have left over, they will give out to everybody, equal amount depending on how much you had on the platform. They would give you new stock in the new company, which everybody, a lot of people don't like that, but I think that would be pretty cool. And you would get the 3AC claims. A lot of people said that there's nothing there, but Voyager is the #1 unsecured creditor. Not the #1, but they're an unsecured creditor on that bankruptcy case. That's Voyager's current plan as it is now.
Personally, I like that plan a lot more than accepting 50 million from FTX.
Well, yeah. So Simon, here. So Voyager's current stalking horse plan that you like, and I think I like it too. That plan, Voyager had an auction process. They're having an auction process right now, and they had bidding. And in order for the auction to even take place, you had to have qualified bids. And they received multiple qualified bids. And in order to be a qualified bid, you had to, in the debtor's opinion, you had to have a better offer than Voyager's stalking horse plan. If say there was no qualified bids, the auction would be canceled and it would revert back to Voyager's plan. So we have an auction, so I see that as a good sign.
Yep.
Okay, I'd like to bring up Shirt. He has a different point of view as far as the 50 grand. I was reading his profile.
Yeah.
Let's bring him up.
My experience, I've done a lot of. I've been part of a lot of deals in the oil and gas industry. Now, one thing they're not saying, which if you take that article for what it is they're not saying if it's including debt. So typically, when a company buys another company, they assume the debt of the company. So whatever value they put out, say, you know, we're going to buy Voyager for 50 million. Well, what they're saying is they're going to take, this is what I'm taking from this, because 50 in itself doesn't make any sense, right? You can, if you're doing a marketing campaign and you're trying to get 3 million customers, 50 million is a drop in the bucket, right? So, so the way I'm reading it is that's including the debt, right? Because again, based on the comment that was just made, why would you hold an auction if it's worse than Voyager's plan? So my assumption is that 50 million is FTX or whatever Binance is, they're taking on that debt. So total value is probably the debt plus 50, which I don't know, 700 and something million is the way I'm reading it.
Okay, yeah. So the bit of missing information is the hole, whether it's going to be filled or not.
Yes.
Okay, so that's what to look out for, everyone.
Yeah. So I guess we'll find out soon enough.
We will.
But good signs nonetheless. Good signs.
Thank you.
Okay, next speaker is Justin.
Hey, how you doing? Simon, I'm a huge fan of yours. Been listening to you for a couple of years, and it's been amazing. I appreciate what you've done with Celsius. I'm a current asset holder on Voyager. Can't get some money off of there. And there's been a couple questions I've had that have been answered. The one question I don't really know the answer to yet is how do we, as the asset holders, push for your solution and what you're suggesting so that this whole thing, we can positively affect the outcome in the direction that we'd like to go?
So the first thing we need to see on the Celsius case is we need the Celsius plan to be published so that they can determine how they're going to treat the different constituencies, custody, earn. There's a bit of court as well that needs to make those determinations. And then once that plan, you've got custody, you've got earn, you've got loans, and the different ways. You then need to, once that plan is then, don't believe what Alex said on the last thing. We were following exactly what he told us that to do in the email, which was not go to the unsecured creditors. That's the debtors plan. The Celsius have exclusivity and they wanted to gain access to our plan, just like the plan that they're putting together right now, maybe as a result of the meetings that we had when we were trying to support the company with Citibank in the early days. And so we need to see, Alex wanted us to be the enemy and tell everybody how the haircut, that Celsius's problem is their hole. They've got to take the first version of the plan. And we've been engaging with the unsecured creditors all along, and I need to get their permission to say that. And once I have permission to say that, I can now say that we have been engaging all along. We have been following the process. And Alex knew exactly what the process was. And if he gives me permission to release the emails that showed that his return was not an apology, his return was actually just a bunch more lies and a bunch more narratives. Because at the end of the day, he lied to me, he stole from me. And just before the withdrawals were suspended, he called me, told me everything was fine, and got his business development team in order to try and get more retirement funds in there. And so I find that very challenging. And so because of that and various other things, I believe that we need a new management. And that new management is a management that might be able to get it out of not going into Chapter 7. And so once we've got that plan and the exclusivity, I think it should be really pushing back against the 120-day extension because I don't want to be forced to invest into Alex's new startup using the funds, our Bitcoin, our stable coins, and then eventually our ETH. So, yeah.
I apologize. I'm referring to the Voyager thing. How do we make sure that we support your plan in the Voyager bankruptcy?
So the Voyager stuff, I'm just putting this out to the community and I'm trying to help you understand the dynamics, and I'll speak with people and we'll continue to give information as things progress.
Okay, so there's nothing you know of that's like something that we could do right now to push your ideas?
Well, I guess we could make sure that this recording gets to the right people. That would be the first step, and then people could understand the dynamics, and hopefully they can put together a better plan from that.
Okay, we have Alex Mashinsky. Alex, nice to have you here. We're gonna give you the mic. Let's if you have something to say with the Voyager thing where you can help us out, Alex, you're a great mind, and we'd love to hear it. But you have the mic. All right. Well, Alex asked for the mic. I gave him the mic, and he stepped back down. The mic is here.
I think that was a parody, Alex Mashinsky Conscience. So we've got. Should we bring up?
That wasn't Alex Mashinsky.
No, that's not the real
one.
Right,
for record, can we get that straight? Because people will create conspiracy theories here. What was that, Alex Mashinsky, or was it someone else looking?
I was triple checking it. It's Alex Mashinsky Conscience.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So no one create a conspiracy theory around that. And did he jump off, or did we boot him off?
No, he jumped off.
Okay. All right, because lots of people were claiming that we booted Alex off. Alex left.
No, absolutely. Listen, I gave Alex the quote unquote Alex the mic. He got up and he went back down, and that's how it went down. It's all here on it's here.
Okay.
We're good.
Let's bring on Otis.
Hey, Otis.
Hey, Mr. Dixon. I just have one question to ask you. Have you seen the plan that Celsius submitted to the UCC?
I'm unable to comment.
That's a simple
Otis,
yes or
my
no.
guy. Otis, do me a favor, my guy. You are my guy. You are everything right now. I need your mind. We're really struggling. We're trying to make it here on this Voyager thing. Could you give us just a piece of your mind, bro? Because you're incredible. We need that right now for the UCC. Please.
Ask a question and I'll answer.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm unable to comment on that.
No, what I'm
I know
saying
it's
is,
a
Jay,
simple yes or no,
that was my only question.
But there are people that have made me sign things that make me look like a dick, but it will compromise what I believe I can do for creditors if I get compromised in that process and entrapped into that process.
Hey, Otis, can I get something from you? Can we get something like your voice on Voyager, because you're incredible? Can we get something from you, Otis? What's up?
I don't know much about the Voyager case. I didn't have any VGX
Well, listen, I have a lot of VGX, right? I passed navigator status. I put a lot of money in there. I sacrificed a lot, Otis. It's not a security as yet. They had a debit card program that was bananas, and I thought it was going to be great, a good roadmap, and now we're in a state of Chapter 11. Do you think that there's something that we could do with that debit card, Otis, by any chance? Is there something that the debit card could give us back, maybe, if Voyager was functional again? Is there something there for us?
Man, I don't know, because I don't know, the Voyager business in and out the way I know the Celsius business in and out. So I wish I could answer questions, but I'll be doing you a disservice because I don't know the answers.
Otis, so this is what we're going to do. I'm going to get some people up here that are more knowledgeable about the Voyager situation. Please stay around, listen, right? Let's listen to these guys and draw a conclusion from what you could get from it, and come up and say something, because you're so valued, you're so intelligent, you're an incredible being, and I appreciate you, bro. But just step down for a minute. I'm going to get some people with Voyager up here, and we're going to take care of this.
All right,
hey, all right, thank you, sir. We're going to bring Norman to the stage. Norman, my friend, talk to me.
Hey, Norman, you around? Oh, he jumped down, I think.
He might have rugged. He might have rugged. Norman, come in and come and go. Come right back. All right, you're on, Norman. Good.
Hello, everybody. I don't know what was going on with the I wound up on stage without asking, and then I went down. So I don't know. Got a little confusing there. Thank you, Simon, for adding what you do know about Voyager to the mix of information. I certainly don't think it's worth $50 million. I think it's certainly worth more, and I certainly hope that there will be something, for everybody that's got Voyager tokens. I'm a navigator, so I'm hoping for some value there. And I really don't have much to say.
Okay, thanks, Norman. You've got a little plan that you've been trying to get attention to. So if you want to see Norman's plan on Celsius, then check him out. He's got some Google Docs and he's got some ideas. So you might want to check out what Norman's trying to get attention to. Okay, who's next? I'm gonna do another 25 minutes. So I'm where I am. It's gonna be 9 o'clock in 25 minutes. So that's my hard stop.
All right, let's go with liberty, freedom, justice for all, my guy. We're connecting you right now, my friend. Live with Simon Dixon. Let's go.
All right. Let's go to the next one.
I do have a question for Simon, if I could speak.
Go for it, Norman.
Okay. Simon, you often, very often, mention regulators and licenses needed and so forth. And it really kind of bugs me that regulation is so in the fog. You don't know the name of the person that's talking. I don't. Maybe you do when you're talking with them. But is there any kind of hierarchy? If you disagree with a regulator, you can go to his boss and say, this guy's telling me something I don't like. I really think this regulation thing is sort of so hidden that people can't,
Yeah. At the end of the day, if you want to run a regulated financial institution, then you work for the regulators. And if you want to push back against a regulator, then you have to take them to court. And that's kind of what Ripple's doing at the moment. They're taking the SEC to court. And that's how things get determined. But you have to invest a lot of money. And as with all legal cases, money becomes the deciding factor quite often. Money and power are the two games here. The regulators have the power, the company has the money. And if you do incorrect things, then you get on the wrong side of that. And so you have to engage throughout the process and engage in transparency with regulators. And the real challenge is half the time when you're engaging with regulators, you also get a gag order at the same time. So you're not actually allowed to speak about it. So it's a challenging thing, but there are regulators of the regulators. And you have multinational institutions, you have competing jurisdictions, and that's really what's allowed Bitcoin and crypto to survive so far, is competing jurisdictions. And we are getting to a crossroads at the moment where regulatory clarity is getting there. But yeah, it's you're asking a governance question. If you want me to be a bit predicty and forecasty, in the future, regulators are code. It's just as simple as putting everything into code, and everything's moving in that direction. And then you have enforcement and ensuring that the code does what it said it's going to do. And that's an entirely different conversation because that's a petrifying world as well. Okay, next question.
Yeah, thank you. I'd love to see it's a government organization or organizations, and it just seems like there ought to be a chart that I could look at, an organization chart and people
Actually,
there.
some of them are SROs and private organizations and charities and stuff. It's not always what you think it is. It's a bit like at the moment, people are looking a lot at the monarchy in the UK because obviously the Queen sadly passed. And that's actually, I don't want this to be about that, but that's the subject of the book that I was writing until Celsius blew up. I was writing my book on 5,000 years of monetary history and understanding everything that's happening today with all the monetary flows by following the money in all of the biggest power plays in the world. And then how to survive that. And that's the book that I was trying to write in. And it looks like it's going to be next year, but it was meant to be out this year.
Oh, you have to rename it 5001 years. All right,
Yeah.
I'm going to stop down to listening. Thank you for the answer.
Thank you.
Okay, next speaker is Cody.
Hey, thanks for bringing me on, Simon. I appreciate it. I'll make it real short. I'm in the same boat as a lot of other people in Voyager, and I tend to find it hard to find updates on the court hearings and filings and stuff like that. But I actually heard a guy up here, Liquid, a little bit ago, and he does have a YouTube channel that I happened to stumble across, and he breaks it down pretty simple, 2-3 minute videos. If anybody wants to go and find his YouTube channel just for future reference, he goes every time they have a court hearing or whatever they're doing, he goes over it. So he's on top of it pretty good, and he breaks it down for people like me that I'm a dummy, so it makes it real easy if anybody wants to follow his YouTube channel. I believe it's just Liquid on YouTube.
Listen, we're not up here shilling Liquid. You could find Liquid at any time in a VGX room. You know what I mean? That's not what we're here for, bro. Don't do that. All right? Ask your question, please.
I apologize. I was just trying to make it easier for people to listen to the updates and stuff about Voyager. Sorry.
Okay, cool. Anyone else got a question? Thank you.
I think we've got Sefi. It's been waiting a bit.
Yeah, hey guys. Yeah, the questions have gotten off the rails here a little bit, but so as individual either creditors or stockholders of original Voyager, etc., people who have like some deep skin in the game, from an individual perspective, like what kind of actionable things can we take away from this discussion? Who should we be like petitioning if we think something differently should be done at this point? Is there a point of contact with this commission or anybody else that would make sense? Like, it's one thing to kind of like be poetic about like what could or couldn't happen, but what are the actual like actionable things we could do individually?
Yeah, I'm not a lawyer, but if a motion isn't filed, then no one gives a shit. That's the way Chapter 11 works. So you've got to coordinate, and unfortunately, money talks. So then you have to coordinate budget in order for lawyers to get things communicated in a way that's going to make sense to the court. So you've got two choices. You join these spaces and you have your voice heard. That may take you into a particular group, a particular issue. And then you might be able to put together funding in order to engage in a lawyer that would be able to have your push things forward. But if there's not a motion, then it's not being heard.
Okay, next speaker is Miltos.
Hello, guys. Thank you for bringing me on. Simon, thank you for your time. I want to say that I'm a small investor in Bank to the Future, and that I got acquainted with Celsius, became a little investor in Celsius and also a creditor through my company, so other people involved as well, and through myself personally. And just to make things quick, the question I want to ask, which isn't kind of a question, it's kind of obvious, is that shouldn't FTX want to give the Voyager creditors equity? It seems like everyone's looking at the short-term math. and I think there's a vested interest, because like us, from what I would want from the Celsius solution would be for me to get some of my money back in kind and equity, exactly as Simon is stating. And this is clearly what everyone should want, because we are so many people that are creditors, and we have a vested interest. So we will back the company when we have equity, and we would want it to succeed. So it's really baffling why FTX would just come and do a lowball and not give. Yeah, you have the people that want to go out quickly. There should be a solution for them, and the ones that want to wait, like a lot of people in Celsius that wanted to hodl. That was like the whole mantra of the what the whole company was promoting, as well as Alex, that sadly manipulated us and really did lie to us. So the long term value would be to get everyone behind a company, and long term would be a lot more valuable if we all had equity to push the company in and stick with the company, and not just go out quickly. So I think that would be something FTX would want, and I'm wondering why they don't see it. That's it. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, and this is where FTX can make the decision. Did you want to bargain, or did you want to give a little bit of the pie of your $30 billion company to support creditors? And if you do want to support creditors, let us know. We can support you in that process, or you can develop your own process. But so that they can make decisions around what type of organization they're getting into bed with. And I think we need to hold ourselves accountable that it doesn't quite make sense to go out raising funding so that other equity holders can benefit, when all of the benefit you gain will be at the expense of the creditors that have actually been shafted by the system. And I think at least we should know that that's what's happening, so that people can just make sense of this mess, and people can decide what's right. And so let's do that. That's what we're doing. I think it should be equity in the bidder, or it should be equity in the reorg.
Okay, let's try GemFi again. GemFi, can you hear us?
Hey, I'm sorry. Can we get DJ Crypto to the stage? Can we do that?
Go ahead.
All right, DJ Crypto. We haven't heard from you yet, my friend. Come on up here, DJ. Say your piece, man. This is Simon, DJ. Let's go.
Hey, Simon. Thanks for doing this. Quick observation is obviously I missed a lot of it, but the 50 million should be assumed to not even be factual. We're just going off of that, and it does seem too low. But in regards to the information that we do get, what would your expectation be from the Voyager UCC on communication? Would you expect us to receive more than we've adjourned for the day? Would you expect more than the random AMA on Reddit or the YouTube that happened at a 2 p.m. on a weekday? And we're getting one bit of information per month. What would your expectation be dealing with the Celsius ongoings for this UCC?
Yeah. So imagine that you've hired a lawyer, and it's your own money. And every time you speak to your lawyer, they charge you for reading the email, they charge you for taking that call, and then they charge you for whatever they reply to your email, and then they charge you for any follow-on calls you make, and then they charge you for any action that's taken. You want a return on investment, and that's how you should see the UCC. Are you getting your ROI because you're paying for it? And so that's what I would be expecting. And whenever I hire a lawyer, we spent millions on lawyers. I want them to get us the result that we set out, and the result should be fill the damn hole.
I agree. What would you think? Are there any, kind of like what Steffi was saying, are there any actionable steps that you think we could take as community, as individuals, whatever it may be, in order to push this UCC to give us what we feel owed or deserved, or just some semblance of respect by who is arbitrarily representing us? Is there any pressure that we can put on to get more out of them?
Yeah, clarity and communication. So the more specific you can get about a specific request, the easier it is to execute. So one of the challenges when I first got involved in monetary reform, I used to speak outside like Occupy London and Occupy Wall Street and try and help people that the enemy of the system is actually systemic and it's the way money is created. When we got behind, okay, here's 3 proposals, here's how banks should be reformed. They shouldn't be able to own your own money, they shouldn't be able to spend your money, and they shouldn't rehypothecate money. And once we got the messaging very clear, then there was actionable steps, and we had to go into the Bank Charter Act and explain specifically the legislative changes that would need to happen in order to transition. It required Bitcoin to be created until people got it because our communication was so unclear. But when Bitcoin was actually created, everyone understood the difference between money you own, money you can spend, and money that has a fixed supply versus money at a bank. And so often, if we can demonstrate the solutions, and so an example would be we created that that video with bank. If you do Bitfinex hack recovery, we created that video just to explain this process because it's so complex. So the clearer in your communication, the more specific that you're asking for, and then engaging with the legal counsel that can reword our crazy requests into something that translates into court, is what actually happens. So I think personally, you either like this message or you don't like this message. But the message that I'm sending to the UCC is that if FTX wants to benefit, then give some of that $30 billion of equity to the creditors. And if you don't, then Voyager put together a decent reorg, deal with some of the regulatory issues, and get the creditors some equity on top of what you were giving them, and then allow the two to compete. And the UCC, your job is to facilitate filling the hole and getting the best result for creditors, not the easiest result for creditors.
Hey, thanks for your time, and hopefully we'll get you again next month talking about it.
Okay, cool. And I have committed to a Friday weekly AMA like this, and I just wanted to do an emergency one because, Jay let me know what was happening. I jumped into some of his spaces more meeting, and he challenged me and said, look, what can we do? And so this was Jay's initiative. So thanks for setting this up, Jay.
Simon, it's really all about you right now because I just asked you the question that DJ asked you actually, like, in a helpless state, how can we get our voice heard by the UCC and do it effectively? And you told us that you would do some things for us, and I just appreciate you stepping up.
Okay.
Nobody stepped up. You stepped up.
Thanks, Jay. I got 10 minutes more, so.
I really want to hear from Obi-Wan. If we could get Obi-Wan in here, somebody could get Obi-Wan real quick. Just send Obi a DM or something. It would be great. We only got 10 minutes more.
Let's get on GemFi.
Hey, Simon. Hi, guys. Thank you, Aslan. Simon, so if they pay the $50 million to Voyager to buy their equity, are they taking over the $800 million hole, the bad debt, to pay us off, or how does it work? Because how it worked with BlockFi, with Zach, they bought the company for $25 million and covered the $200 million hole, the $250 million or whatever it was. So how is that compared to what happened to BlockFi?
That's the question. So it's either going to be a haircut to creditors, or it's going to be a debt instrument from FTX, a debt restructuring, or they're going to actually be covering that. I think the whole is down to approximately 400 million, but I haven't had a real deep look into the balance sheet because it was 600 million. And I don't know what assumptions they put on the 3AC outcome on the balance sheet and what other assets they put in there, because I just haven't had the time to spend as much time on it. But I know that they're unwinding the Almeida loan, which takes 200 million off. So what happens to that 400 million? That's the key question.
All right. Thank you, Simon.
All right, well, let's get out.
Just a quick question. Sorry, Simon.
I'm sorry, pardon
Is
me.
it
Okay.
not possible to? Sorry, I'm sorry about that, man. Simon, isn't it possible for you and Bank to the Future to raise that money for Voyager? I mean, would that be something you would be comfortable with? Let's leave Celsius out. Let's talk about Voyager.
Could Bank to the Future raise 400 million in order to fill a hole? Well, you got to think about why they're going to fill it. What are they going to get? So you got to think
Equity.
of a compelling offer. So then we'd need to have the cooperation of the reorged company in order to do that. But yes, that's we could raise additional funding, or you can securitize the debt. So there's different ways that we can do that, and we've done it before.
Okay, thank you. Is that something you can consider?
Yeah, if Voyager wants us to raise additional capital, then that's what we do at Bank to the Future.
Thank you. You can kick me down.
Gemfire, you'll never get kicked. You'll leave gracefully, my friend.
Thanks, man.
Okay, who we got now? Should we go for? I think Mr. Kitty wants to ask another question.
Can we hold on, Mr. Kitty.
I had a couple of points. They're real quick, J-Fib. They're real quick. I'm sad emojis aren't part of the recording of the audio because they do give a real feel of the room that the audio misses. And secondly, can we please read all tweets before blanket tweeting them out so there's no need to quote backtrack later? That's it. I'll step down.
Mr. Kitty,
nice makeup as well.
you don't cease to amaze me. I love you. All right, listen, let's get to Techie and let's get to Liberty. Let's do it.
Hey guys, I don't know, so you have a few minutes left, Simon. I guess my question is more philosophical regarding the BGX token. I know that just in the Austrian School of Economics, we talked about how you want hard money, and part of the free market is that tokens like the BGX token and Cell token were existing within their own ecosystem. And so I'm trying to understand philosophically how are you viewing BGX tokens similar to Cell token, and you're thinking about an investment bank, you're not going to have a token, but do you see the benefits of having a utility token like BGX and Cell to sort of bolster the ecosystem in the crypto space, and how that would be good for the space in general? And just wanted to hear some of your thoughts about that, because you did mention that you would prefer to not have the Cell token if you were to have the company for yourself. So how would that work with BGX?
No, to be clear, if there is a regulatory way of having complete clarity on what that token is, and it be traded in the right mechanism that doesn't get it shut down by regulators, then I'm good. And I gave two solutions. So we did a security token offering for Exodus in partnership, and I'm a shareholder in Exodus, in partnership with Securitize. I'm a shareholder in Securitize. And they went through the process of getting it signed off for a Reg A plus offering, and then issuing it through DeFi contracts that were whitelisted in order to meet the requirements of regulators as a security. That's one way of going about it. The second way of going about it is issuing a token that operates outside of a centralized company and outside of the centralized management and control, that has a decent argument where a lawyer is willing, a reputable law firm is willing to create a legal opinion stating that it is not a security, because that will be needed in order to get out of Chapter 11 and avoid Chapter 7 if you want to do anything with the token. So it's all about what is the optimum way to get out of Chapter 11. And if people are investing in that token, then the regulators are making it clear that if people are seeing that as the expectation of profit from the management and control others after giving money, then they consider that a security. And there's no law firm, after everything that the SEC has said, that will put their name and reputation into a legal opinion stating that it's not a security anymore. And so therefore treat it as a security. But on the other side, I have worked with companies. I invested in the first DEX. It was called Shapeshift. And Shapeshift was created by Eric Voorhees. And they had to switch to KYC, and then Uniswap came along and did it without KYC. And now they're looking at all the sanctions and various things that they have to put in order to backtrack. But the Shapeshift was actually went through the process of doing it where they take the equity and turn it into a DAO and a governance token. You can't sell it. You can't use it as a raising finance mechanism. It can't be connected to a centralized company. And then you might have some kind of arguments. But these cases just have so much exposure that no matter what we want to do, this is about avoiding Chapter 7 and getting in a reorg that allows for everybody to get that equity and gain all the benefits from all the assets so that they can fill the hole and made whole. And I think the token conversation is one of those things that if it goes in the wrong direction, it can end up in Chapter 7.
Yeah, no, thank you for explaining your perspective on that. I guess I was trying to, and you did right now, I think that you explained the distinction between your philosophical views on that and then the legal views. They're kind of different. They're kind of overlapping, but
yeah. I mean, philosophically, I don't want to do half the shit that I have to do at Bank to the Future. Philosophically, I came into this industry to democratize investing. After 10 years of being beaten up by regulators, I ended up understanding a lot about global compliance, and I look forward. I have a philosophy of what I think the world should be, but if I want to continue to operate a company, then I have to comply with those laws. Otherwise, I'm going to destroy my shareholder value, and I'm going to destroy everything that we tried to build.
yeah,
So
no,
we
I
have to
understand.
operate.
I guess I was coming from the perspective of philosophically, you didn't agree with VGX token's existence or SL token's existence, but I think you clarified that.
They were done pretty differently. So VGX was distributed as a token in line with some decentralized self-custody technology, is my understanding. And then the company acquired it. And then maybe I think they just wanted to use that tech. And then it wasn't used as a fundraising mechanism where most people thought it was equity in the company, and then registered as a security as a Form D exemption, and then traded on crypto exchanges. So those are two very different things in the eyes of regulators. And so those things need to be understood. And then when you connect the company to a centralized company and it's sold in that way, then you get a lot of confused people. And when you have a lot of confused people, when it goes wrong, they all complain to regulators, and that's when shit hits the fan.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, so no, thank you for explaining the distinction conceptually, because I think that would help in people's minds about whether you think certain tokens shouldn't exist at all based on your investment philosophy. And I appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Okay. Awesome. So it's on the hour. It's my cutoff time. We did 2 hours. So Jay, just want to say thank you for setting this up. I think what we'll try and do is my problem is I keep making these 2-3 hour videos that and stuff that no one can watch. So we'll try and splice this. We'll put it up, and then maybe it just needs to go into some kind of sound bites that can be sent to those that are actually the decision makers in this process. And just as a key summary, you are the creditors. There are different mechanisms. There's debt, there's equity, and those should be used for your benefit. You should avoid Chapter 7. And the key between whether this avoids Chapter 7 and gets out of Chapter 11 or not, at the end of the day, the decision makers are regulators. Because if the judge signs off something, if the UCC signs off something, and then the regulator files a motion to object, that is where you're going to end up in Chapter 7. And so that's where all the energy and focus on top of the solutions should be if we want to see a successful reorg. This has got to be done in compliance with, and it can't challenge existing regulators, agendas and goals. Unfortunately, this is not the moment to do it. This is about creditors, creditors, creditors. And so let's fill the hole. And I hope that this gave you different things to think about, and really some kind of structure. And what I'd like to see next from here is I'd like to see a proposal of the reorg from the company, and I'd like to see FTX challenge that, whatever process that is, whatever it's a stalking horse or whatever it is. That's for the lawyers to figure out. But the job of the UCC is to get the best for creditors. And I think you should all be shareholders in a company that can continue to operate. Okay, over and out. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, Simon, before you go, I had something from the floor. If you can, I don't want to impose, you know what I mean? But I had a question from the floor. Would you be willing to do one more question?
Why not?
All right, cool. All right, so here it is. How bad do you feel the reputational damage will influence the go-forward self-structured Voyager?
I'm less close to it than I am with Celsius. So I don't have the same level of information as the ones that have been really following this case inside out. But from what I can see, I haven't. There's less things to be concerned about. There was a really bad risk management decision, which hindsight is all of us can say, okay, that was crazy. The company was too exposed. From what I can see, it was a risk management issue. And obviously, there is also that regulatory issue with securities. But the vast majority of what they did, it seemed like it was trading. And I personally believe that in this specific case, it's perfect for something like the Bitfinex solution, but modernized to comply with the securities law version of where we are today. And the existing management should do whatever they need to do to make sure that this can get out in a regulatory compliant way. And if that means dropping earn and making sure that those things have a good home, then that's what I think Voyager should be doing. And there may be things that I just don't know about, but I think that's the opposite of the Celsius situation, where there were very, very questionable activities happening. Okay.
Simon, we can't ask for any more than that. Listen, man, lessons on your journey today, if possible. If you would allow me to DM you, I'd like permission to DM you. I have something that I need to ask you, but it's not for the space.
Okay, awesome. All right,
All
thanks,
right.
everybody. Catch you on the next one. I'll be doing another one on Friday, my weekly one. Thanks, sir.
You got it. Thank you. Hey.